Hi, I'm Yara Inbar-Bergen. I'm what I'd like to think of as an advanced home cook who's really passionate about international cooking techniques, international food prep techniques, recipes, etc. I have a background in tutoring. I love learning and sharing that knowledge with other people. And I also have some experience in the entertainment industry when I was an actress. I did some commercials and small student films. One of my favorite things to do when I go to somebody's house is snoop through their kitchen. So I invite you to do the same. So follow me. Okay, let's start over here. This here is my spice drawer. Come take a closer look. So all of these spice jars were blank, and I put my own spices in them, and then I printed out all these labels to customize whatever spices I had in here. And I'll show you the spices in a second, but see this wooden piece here? I actually had custom drilled to the size of every one of these spice jars and these salt jars. Some of my more unusual spices, I think, are Aleppo pepper, annatto seeds, baharat seasoning that I made from a Yotam Ottolenghi book, different types of caraway, cardamoms, black, white, and green, New Mexico green chili, grains of paradise, sumac, one of my favorites, along with za'atar. And then to the left here, we've got various types of salts. The Salish Alderwood Smoked Sea Salt is by far my favorite, followed by Himalayan pink salt. Okay, so here we've got just your basic kitchen supply drawer, like bags and parchment paper. Here are food storage containers, lids on the bottom, containers on top. Behind here, we've got my coffee drawer. And you're probably wondering why there's a drill in my coffee drawer, and I'll explain that in a minute. Okay, below here is my tea drawer. I've got various loose teas and bag teas and hot chocolates. And I have this, what I think is a kind of a cool little system for organizing my teas. I have one binder for caffeinated and one for decaf. And then you can just flip through the teas and select what you want. Let's check out my pantry. So I had these drawers custom put in before it was just laminate shelving. And the height of each of these drawers is precisely the height of the containers that are within them. And let me show you a little bit more. This is my baking drawer, and you can see I have different types of flours, various sugars, light brown, dark brown, buckwheat flour, and more. This is the pasta drawer. And you'll see that on the labels for the different pastas, I have the number of minutes to cook, which is very handy. The bottom drawer has various rices, grains, and legumes. For instance, we have chana dal, bulgur, red split lentils, wild rice, various beans. This is one of my favorite rices. It's short grain sweet rice, which is for making rice porridge, juk in Korea or congee in China. This drawer is dedicated to various seeds and dried fruit and nuts. For instance, chia seeds, buckwheat groats, oat groats, and I grew up on this stuff, chocolate spread. But I much prefer the homemade hazelnut chocolate spread version. Over here in this drawer, I've got skillets in pots and pans. cooking utensils. This cabinet has oils and vinegars. Here's olive oil, sunflower seed oil, toasted sesame oil, cherry vinegar, rice vinegar, anchovy sauce. This one, orange blossom water, I recently discovered it and I found that it transforms any dish that has oranges or orange juice in it, and I love it. Our cabinet has all my small appliances, which makes it really convenient and easy to grab. And every one of these I've researched thoroughly to make sure that they're top rated, durable, and worked really well. Here are my Dutch ovens and cast iron pans, bricks for brick chicken. This drawer has my knives, one of my favorites, and some tools. Believe it or not, this is actually my favorite kitchen appliance other than my knives. A scale. I weigh everything, and here's a mini scale for grams. Great for making bread and baking. I love the sink area because it really helps me keep things clean and avoid cross-contamination. So this awesome faucet here turns on and off like that, and the sensor soap. This is my coffee making station, my electric kettle. This is a very special electric kettle because you can customize the temperature of the water to the degree, which is very unique. I haven't been able to find it in other kettles. My Burr coffee grinder, my AeroPress, and here's this drill that I promised I'd explain. So before I had my Burr coffee grinder, I actually had this grinder, and I used to hand grind every morning, which took about 3 minutes or so, and it created great results, but the problem is it's really hard to do before you've had coffee in the morning. So I thought I'd use a drill to expedite the process, but the problem is this doesn't fit on here. So I had this little bit here 3D printed. And now when I insert it in here, check it out. Much better, right? Let's take a peek at my cookbooks. Here are my international cookbooks. Some of my favorites are Yotam Ottolenghi's books, French cooking, Caribbean, Pueblo Indian, some of my magazines. This one has my technique-based cooking, like slow cookers, vegetarian cooking, fermentation. This is one of my favorites. Jim Leahy's no knead bread recipes. Actually, let me show you how I organize the recipes that I've done versus ones I want to do. So every cookbook has this format, one sticker for recipes made and recipes to try. And I write notes and sticky notes on the actual recipe pages. And this cabinet is more generic: cooking, techniques, science of cooking, fundamentals of cooking. There you go. That's it. Next, let's talk about international cooking. One of the international cooking techniques that I've recently been researching is the placement of aromatics when you're cooking things like sauces. For instance, in traditional French or European cooking, we tend to put the aromatics in first, for instance, garlic, onions, and then the rest of the ingredients. But what I've noticed when I've done some research is in other countries like India and Egypt, they tend to add the aromatics at the very end. They temper it. In Egypt, they call it taklia, which they add to their malahia, which is their traditional national dish of this really interesting kind of slimy, leafy green, which is delicious. And then in India, to their dal, they add what they call a tadko, which is basically the same thing. They temper the aromatics and spices, and then they add it right at the end. And so what I'm finding really interesting is I don't really know why there's this variation. Does it make a difference? Is one better than the other? So I'm investigating that right now, and hopefully I'll have my results soon. An international food prep technique example is cutting pomegranates. So let's be honest here, cutting pomegranates tends to be pretty much messy any way that you do it. But I thought somebody has to know how to do this well. And the thought that came across to me is, who's gonna know better than someone who does it all day long, constantly? I did a little bit of researching and I found on YouTube this street food from Thailand, which happens to be pretty popular, pomegranate juice. And I watched the way this lady cut the pomegranate, and it was just swift, incredible, clean, and I'd like to demonstrate that. To cut the pomegranate, you're first gonna need a pomegranate. You'll need a paring knife, a paddle or a spoon, a little container for your scraps, and a bowl for your orills. So first what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove a cap from the pomegranate, and you can kind of tell where to do it based on where the ridges start to form. And only insert your knife into about maybe barely 1/8 of an inch depth, because you really don't want to cut those orills. And you want to gently remove this cap. So you can see here that we didn't really pop any of the orills, so it's not messy. Now what we want to do is wherever the membrane connects to the peel, you want to make a vertical incision. What's interesting here is that it's not really equidistant or uniform where the lines meet, which is why it's so important to remove this cap so we have a good view of that. And now what we want to do is gently pry it open so we can access that membrane, which we're going to pull out. Oh, looks like I missed one right here. One of the trickier things about pomegranates is getting the orills that are inside of the membrane, so this is one reason why I really like this technique so much. Okay, so now we've opened it up, and look how easy it is to just remove this membrane. All right, now we're ready to turn it over and hit it with a paddle. And that's it. See, we got them all pretty much. Now if you have any little membranes that got in the bowl, you could just fish those out and you're ready for the next step. So now if you wanted to go the next step and make pomegranate juice with your orills that you just got out of your pomegranate, what they use in Thailand is very similar to potato ricer. It's kind of hard to get around here. Maybe you could special order it, but basically the way it works is you throw in a handful of the orills into the ricer and you just mash it, and then kind of turn the orills around and mash it again, and it'll just pour right out. And while I like this method, it worked nicely. I compared notes with a friend of mine who also loves cooking, and she said that she used a food mill and it worked really, really well. So I'm excited to try that. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video and get to know me a little bit, my international food interests. So I hope to hear from you guys soon. Thanks. Bye.